If you truly like her, your silence will expose you faster than your words ever could. Because attraction isn't proven by intensity, it's proven by consistency. Stay with me till the end of this speech, because one mistake you're making right now might already be pushing her away. If you truly like her, stop over-explaining yourself, because over-explanation is rarely about clarity. It's about anxiety. It's the unconscious fear that if you don't justify every word, every action, every pause, you'll be misunderstood, rejected, or abandoned. And the moment you start trying to manage how you're perceived instead of being grounded in who you are, the dynamic shifts. Attraction doesn't grow in spaces where someone feels they must constantly defend their intentions. It grows where there is quiet confidence, where actions align so clearly with values that explanations become unnecessary. Over-explaining often disguises itself as honesty, but in reality, it's a lack of self-trust. When you truly like someone, you may feel the urge to clarify everything. Why you didn't reply fast enough, what you meant by a certain message, why you acted a certain way. You think you're being considerate, but what you're really doing is seeking reassurance. You're asking her to confirm that you're still safe, still wanted, still approved. And that places emotional pressure on the connection before it has even had the chance to breathe. People don't feel drawn to someone who is constantly asking to be understood. They feel drawn to someone who understands themselves. There is something deeply unsettling about someone who talks too much about their intentions instead of letting them unfold naturally. It creates confusion rather than clarity. When your behavior is consistent, respectful, and emotionally grounded, it speaks louder than any explanation ever could. You don't need to announce that you're genuine if your presence already feels steady. You don't need to justify your interest if your actions are thoughtful and measured. The more you explain, the more you suggest that something needs to be fixed, and that subtle insecurity is felt even if it's never spoken out loud. If you truly like her, trust that silence does not always mean distance. Sometimes silence is composure. Sometimes it's restraint. Sometimes it's emotional regulation. Over-explaining removes the mystery that allows attraction to deepen. It interrupts the natural rhythm of connection and replaces it with constant emotional noise. When someone feels like they have to analyze your words instead of experiencing your energy, the emotional connection weakens. Calm is compelling. Emotional self-containment creates safety, and safety is far more attractive than reassurance. Over-explaining also shifts the power dynamic. When you explain excessively, you position yourself as someone who needs to be evaluated, approved, or corrected. You hand over authority instead of standing firmly in your choices. If you truly like her, you don't shrink yourself into digestible pieces so you won't be misunderstood. You allow yourself to be seen as you are, trusting that the right person will not require constant clarification to feel secure with you. Confidence is not loud. It's quiet and unshakable. It doesn't rush to fill gaps with words. When you stop over-explaining, you give the connection room to grow organically. You allow space for curiosity instead of control. You let her experience you, not your justifications. And in that space, something powerful happens. She begins to feel rather than analyze. She senses consistency instead of hearing promises. She observes emotional maturity instead of emotional urgency. This doesn't mean becoming distant or emotionally unavailable. It means being intentional with your words, speaking from alignment rather than fear, and allowing your actions to reinforce everything you don't need to say out loud. If you truly like her, lead with emotional stability, not intensity, because intensity without stability is just emotional chaos disguised as passion. Intensity is easy. It shows up quickly, speaks loudly, and demands attention. Emotional stability, on the other hand, takes discipline. It requires self-regulation, patience, and the ability to sit with your emotions without acting on every impulse. Many people believe attraction is built by overwhelming someone with desire, but what actually creates lasting interest is the sense that you are emotionally grounded no matter what's happening around you. Intensity often feels flattering in the beginning, but it carries an undercurrent of unpredictability. One day you're fully present, expressive, deeply invested. The next day you're withdrawn, reactive, or distant because your emotions are running the relationship instead of your awareness. If you truly like her, you understand that emotional whiplash creates anxiety, not connection. You don't make her guess which version of you she's going to get today. Stability is about being emotionally consistent, even when feelings fluctuate. It's about remaining respectful, calm, and centered even when attraction grows stronger. Leading with emotional stability means you don't let excitement turn into pressure. You don't rush intimacy to soothe your own uncertainty. You don't overwhelm her with constant messages, demands for attention, or dramatic expressions of affection that feel more performative than sincere. When someone truly likes another person, they are more concerned with creating emotional safety than with proving intensity. They understand that comfort is what allows attraction to deepen, not emotional excess. Stability makes space for trust to form naturally, without force. Emotional stability also shows in how you handle discomfort. When things don't go your way, you don't become passive-aggressive, distant, or emotionally volatile. You don't punish her with silence or overwhelm her with explanations. You regulate yourself. You pause. You respond instead of react. That ability to self-soothe is incredibly attractive because it signals maturity. It tells her that she doesn't have to manage your emotions on top of her own. Relationships fail not because people don't feel enough, but because they feel too much without knowing how to hold it responsibly. If you truly like her, you don't confuse obsession with care. Obsession demands constant closeness. Care allows breathing room. Emotional stability means you're secure enough to let the connection unfold at its own pace. You don't rush outcomes. You don't try to lock certainty too early. You trust the process because you trust yourself. And that self-trust is felt. It communicates strength without dominance and interest without desperation. It reassures her that you're not trying to extract validation from the relationship. Intensity can impress, but stability sustains. Anyone can be emotionally expressive when things are exciting. Very few can remain grounded when emotions deepen, expectations rise, or uncertainty appears. Leading with emotional stability doesn't mean suppressing feelings. It means containing them with awareness. It means showing that your interest is thoughtful, measured, and intentional. In a world full of emotional unpredictability, being steady becomes rare, and what is rare becomes valuable. If you truly like her, respect her pace even when it's slower than yours, because nothing reveals emotional maturity faster than how someone handles waiting. Attraction makes people impatient. It creates urgency, desire for reassurance, and a subtle fear of losing momentum. But when that impatience turns into pressure, it stops being interest and starts becoming entitlement. Liking someone does not mean they owe you emotional speed, access, or certainty. It means you are willing to meet them where they are without trying to pull them forward just to calm your own anxiety. Respecting her pace requires self-awareness. It asks you to recognize the difference between genuine connection and your need for validation. When someone moves slower, it doesn't automatically mean disinterest. Sometimes it means caution. Sometimes it means past experiences taught them to protect themselves. Sometimes it means they are emotionally intentional rather than impulsive. If you truly like her, you don't take her pace personally. You don't turn her boundaries into a story about rejection. You understand that trust cannot be rushed because anything rushed is fragile. Many people sabotage connections by trying to accelerate intimacy before emotional safety exists. They ask for clarity too early, commitment too fast, vulnerability on demand. But vulnerability is not something you extract. It's something you earn. When you push someone to move faster than they're ready, you force them into defense mode. Instead of feeling closer to you, they begin protecting themselves from you. Respecting her pace communicates patience, and patience signals confidence. It shows that you are not afraid of silence, distance, or time. If you truly like her, you won't use guilt as a tool. You won't say things that subtly shame her for needing time. You won't imply that if she cared enough, she would move faster. That kind of pressure may get compliance, but it will never get genuine connection. Emotional safety cannot coexist with coercion. When someone feels rushed, they don't open, they perform. And performance is not intimacy. Real closeness comes from choice, not urgency. Respecting her pace also means regulating your own expectations. You don't start imagining outcomes before foundations are built. You stay present instead of projecting the future. You allow things to unfold naturally without constantly checking for signs, timelines, or guarantees. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you manage them responsibly. You hold your interest without making it her responsibility to stabilize you. That balance is rare and it's deeply felt. When someone respects your pace, it creates emotional relief. It tells you that you're not being measured by speed, but by authenticity, that you don't need to rush comfort to maintain interest, that you are allowed to arrive at connection in your own time. If you truly like her, you offer that relief. You become someone she doesn't have to brace herself around, someone whose presence feels patient rather than demanding. Attraction deepens when someone feels safe to be honest without consequences. Respecting her pace creates space for genuine curiosity, organic closeness, and emotional trust. It allows her to lean in because she wants to, not because she feels pressured to keep up. And in that space, interest grows stronger, not weaker, because what is freely chosen always carries more weight than what is rushed into existence. If you truly like her, be consistent when you don't have to be, because consistency is the quiet language of emotional integrity. Anyone can show up when emotions are high, when attraction is fresh, when there's something to gain or prove. Consistency during those moments is expected. What actually reveals character is how someone behaves when there is no immediate reward, no emotional adrenaline, no pressure to impress. That's where real interest separates itself from temporary excitement. Consistency is not about grand gestures repeated over time. It's about reliability in small, ordinary moments that don't demand attention. Inconsistent behavior creates emotional instability, even when intentions are good. One day there's warmth, effort, attentiveness. The next day there's distance, silence, or unpredictability, explained away as being busy or overwhelmed. While life genuinely gets demanding, inconsistency still leaves an emotional impact. It creates confusion. It makes someone wonder whether the connection is real or situational. If you truly like her, you understand that how you show up regularly matters more than how intensely you show up occasionally. Emotional safety is built through patterns, not promises. Being consistent when you don't have to be means, checking in without being prompted, following through even when motivation dips, maintaining respect even when emotions fluctuate. It means your interest doesn't disappear when things become calm or routine. Many people unconsciously associate attraction with emotional highs, so when the excitement levels out, their effort drops. But connection is not sustained by constant stimulation. It's sustained by steadiness. Consistency reassures her that your presence is not conditional on mood, convenience, or validation. Consistency also reflects emotional responsibility. It shows that you are aware of the effect your behavior has on another person. You don't vanish and reappear without consideration. You don't offer closeness and then withdraw it unpredictably. If you truly like her, you don't make her earn your basic decency or attention. You understand that emotional reliability creates trust, and trust allows intimacy to deepen without fear. When someone knows what to expect from you emotionally, they can relax into the connection instead of constantly analyzing it. There is a difference between consistency and obligation. Consistency doesn't mean forcing yourself to perform or ignoring your own needs. It means aligning your actions with your intentions. If your intention is genuine interest, your behavior reflects that even when there's no immediate emotional payoff. You don't rely on dramatic cycles of closeness and distance to keep things exciting. Emotional unpredictability may feel thrilling, but it erodes trust over time. Stability, on the other hand, may feel subtle, but it creates a sense of grounding that people unconsciously seek. If you truly like her, you show up the same way when things are quiet as you do when things are intense. You don't reduce effort once you feel secure. You don't become passive once interest is established. Many connections fail not because feelings disappear, but because effort becomes inconsistent. When effort drops, the message received is not, "I'm comfortable," but "I'm no longer invested." Consistency protects the connection from unnecessary doubt and emotional distance. Being consistent when you don't have to be communicates respect. It tells her that she's not just valued during moments of excitement, but also during the ordinary flow of life. It shows emotional maturity, self-discipline, and intention. Over time, consistency becomes the foundation that allows attraction to transform into trust, and trust to transform into something sustainable. If you truly like her, listen to understand, not to respond, because most emotional distance begins not from a lack of words, but from a lack of being felt. Many people listen with an agenda. They listen to defend themselves, to correct, to justify, or to prepare the next thing they want to say. In doing so, they miss what is actually being communicated. Words carry emotion beneath them, and if you're only hearing the surface, you're not really listening. When someone feels unheard, they don't argue more, they withdraw. Listening to understand requires presence. It means you are not mentally rehearsing your response while she is speaking. You are not scanning for accusations or threats to your ego. You are paying attention to tone, pauses, and what isn't being said as much as what is. If you truly like her, you become curious about her inner world rather than defensive about your own position. Curiosity softens conversations. Defensiveness hardens them. The difference between the two determines whether communication builds closeness or creates distance. Most people believe listening is passive, but real listening is active and emotionally demanding. It requires restraint. It requires you to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to fix it or explain it away. When she expresses frustration or vulnerability, your job is not to neutralize the feeling, but to acknowledge it. Validation does not mean agreement. It means recognition. When someone feels recognized, they feel safe. And safety allows honesty to deepen rather than shut down. If you truly like her, you won't interrupt her emotional process with logic too quickly. Logic has its place, but timing matters. When emotions are being shared, logic offered too soon can feel dismissive, even if it's well-intentioned. People don't open up to be corrected. They open up to be understood. When you prioritize understanding, you create a space where she doesn't have to over-explain herself or defend her feelings. That space becomes emotionally magnetic. Listening to understand also means noticing patterns. You remember what matters to her. You recognize recurring fears, sensitivities, and values. This kind of listening goes beyond individual conversations. It builds a deeper emotional map of who she is. Over time, she feels seen not just in moments of conflict, but in moments of quiet. That feeling of being known creates intimacy far more effectively than charm or intensity ever could. When you listen without rushing to respond, you regulate the emotional pace of the interaction. You show that you are not overwhelmed by vulnerability. You communicate patience and emotional strength. Many people rush to respond because silence makes them uncomfortable. But silence, when used with intention, allows emotions to land. It gives meaning space to unfold. If you truly like her, you allow that space without filling it with unnecessary explanations or defenses. Being truly heard changes how someone feels around you. It lowers their guard. It makes them more expressive, not less. Over time, conversations become more honest and less performative. She speaks without fear of being misunderstood or minimized. And that level of emotional attunement creates a bond that feels rare. Not because you said all the right things, but because you listened in a way that made her feel safe enough to be real. If you truly like her, don't make her guess where she stands, because uncertainty in emotional connections doesn't create mystery, it creates anxiety. Many people confuse emotional ambiguity with attractiveness, believing that keeping someone unsure will make them more invested. In reality, prolonged uncertainty activates self-doubt, not desire. When someone is constantly trying to interpret mixed signals, their focus shifts from connection to self-protection. If you truly like her, you don't place her in a position where she has to decode your intentions just to feel secure. Clarity is often avoided because it requires vulnerability. Being clear means risking rejection, and many people would rather appear distant than exposed. But emotional courage is far more compelling than emotional avoidance. You don't need dramatic declarations or excessive reassurance to be clear. Clarity lives in consistency, tone, follow-through, and honesty. When your words and actions align, there is nothing to guess. The message is felt without being forced.